This is Trendy Storm and you are watching a one-shot story on what if Naruto fought Momoshiki and Kinshiki alone. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
As a massive black orb the size of the entire Chunin exam stadium slowly descended towards them, he held on as best he could, his clones and loyal partner Kurama assisting him. Kurama, in the form of his golden avatar, gathered Bidama inside his mouth to counter their adversary's assault. Fox silently asked permission to turn his white orbs towards him. He reluctantly backed down with a slow shake of his head. "There are too many people here," he grumbled, gritting his teeth. Countering Otsutsuki's attack now would have disastrous consequences for their entire village and its inhabitants. Boruto, Sasuke, and Sarada will survive under his protection, but all civilians under his protection and everyone in the stadium will not. Even if the durability of his clones has improved over time, he isn't convinced that the resulting explosion of their combined attacks will leave them unscathed, or that the village will survive. He can't take the chance. He will not. He can hear them yelling his name, pleading with him to get to safety and telling him that he has done enough for them. He is unable. It is his responsibility as Hokage to protect the village and his family. And that is exactly what he intends to do. Naruto gave his astonished son a small smile as he looked over his shoulder. As Otsutsuki's attack finally connected and a booming explosion occurred, he could hear him calling out to him. Uncertain amount of time had passed, and his dark blue eyes were still foggy as he observed many people fleeing in fear. One stood back with a triumphant grin as a larger Otsutsuki approached him and grabbed his head, lifting him above the ground. He dropped him before he could do anything else, as a black-haired woman stood protectively in front of him, her Byakugan activated. "Hi Hinata," he managed to say as she looked at him with a smile that would melt anyone. "I love you. Don't be concerned about me." "You know I can't do that," she said confidently as she shifted her gaze to two intruders. "I'm not going to let you touch him." He could just make out an image of his wife fighting off two intruders with everything she had to protect him. Then there was nothing but darkness. "Put him there." "I see, Momoshiki-sama." Those two voices spoke again as he felt himself bound by what appeared to be a giant tree of some kind. His eyes flashed open, and he met Otsutsuki Momoshiki's stoic pale face, while his guardian, Kinshiki, hovered behind him. Something didn't feel quite right. "I'm sure I sensed a third presence," Naruto thought, his eyelids heavy as they had never been before. His blue eyes met Momoshiki's activated Byakugan, which was scanning his stomach for Kurama. "I see," he hummed, continuing to stare with a mixture of curiosity and wonder. He extended his right arm without saying anything else, and Naruto felt a sudden shift, followed by excruciating pain that tore through his body. "Aarghh!" he yelled, as he felt Kurama's chakra being forced out of him and absorbed into his palm Rinnegan. He passed out again before he realized it. During his confinement, he did this frequently. His mind would descend into darkness, only to be jolted as more and more chakra was ripped from him. After about an hour, Naruto continued to thrash around, but to no avail. He couldn't do much in his current state because he was weaker than ever. He still has the ability to fight them, but he must do so wisely. If he was a kid, he'd jump at them and throw a few Rasengans and shadow clones before calling it a day. But it's not that simple. He knew that charging recklessly would be foolish against opponents from the same clan as Kaguya. He needed to think like this if he was going to get out of this situation. "Big guy, Kinshiki, I believe his name was," Naruto said as another jolt of pain traveled through his body, but he endured it, as all shinobi do. "From what I saw, he is the heavy hitter of the two, as evidenced by his ability to destroy an entire stadium with relative ease by gathering energy on the tip of his fingertips." According to Sasuke's reports, he was also the one he faced at Kaguya's palace when he was searching for scrolls that she may have left behind, and Sasuke also informed me that he was a capable fighter, fast and nimble, despite his size. He took a few deep breaths before returning to his analysis of the situation. He possesses Byakugan and is capable of wielding various weapons such as trench knives and kanabo, a spiked or studded two-handed war club commonly used by samurai from the Land of Iron. He narrowed his eyes as he looked at the smaller of the two, Momoshiki. He has a vast arsenal of jutsu stored in his left Rinnegan hand, and if his extraction of Kurama's chakra is any indication, his right Rinnegan is capable of absorbing chakra to a greater extent than Preta Path, and he even absorbed Shikamaru's shadow paralysis jutsu. It's safe to assume he also possesses other abilities of Rinnegan's 6 paths technique, such as Diva, Ashura, Human, Animal, Preta, and Naraka, in addition to summoning chakra rods. I know I can resist most of them. I can use Kurama to break free from Diva Path's Chibaku Tensai, as I did when Nagato trapped me. I resisted Human Path's soul extraction when I was his first KCM and much less experienced. And I don't believe these creatures have summons, so they won't use Animal Path. Preta Path may be a problem, but it has an absorption limit, and using it when he has much greater absorption power through his unique Rinnegan ability will be redundant. Naruto leaned back. A soft thud was heard as his nape hit, what he could now clearly register as a type of Shinju. He knew he couldn't go on like this any longer. Massive stamina and chakra reserves would be useless if he's gassed out by the time Sasuke arrived. Pain that he felt now felt almost unbearable, even worse than when Shinobi hired by Tsunade ate all his limited edition cup. His eyes slowly snapped open as he realized what was going on. Pain. That's all. He closed his eyes once more and began collecting massive amounts of nature energy that were scattered throughout Momoshiki's dimension, slowly mixing every last drop of it with Kurama's extracted chakra. Even if my plan is successful, Naraka Path may be able to restore it, but I must at least try. Another long period of time passed before Momoshiki realized what he was doing. Oh? The alien's face lit up with surprise as an orange shade appeared in the corner of Naruto's eyes. To think you vulgar creatures possess such unique chakra. Arashiki never mentioned anything about this. Kinshiki's one exposed eye hardened when he saw this. With his 6-path Sage Mode, Naruto's sensing abilities skyrocketed to a universal extent, and as such, he sensed everything in the village and beyond. He saw, now named Arashiki, extracting Mitsuki's Sage Chakra with what appeared to be a red fishing rod. Gaara did mention that he lost small chakra that Shukaku left behind after he appeared of Thunder Train when he was traveling to Konoha. I should just dodge whatever he throws at me if he appears. It would be disastrous if he gained access to my 6 paths Senjutsu chakra. Not only that, but he can also copy any ninjutsu he stole via chakra. Even worse, he has a red 6 Tomo Rinnegan similar to Sasuke's and the ability to use Kaguya's teleportation jutsu. It's likely he didn't know about it, Momoshiki said, jolting him out of his reverie. Regardless, I wouldn't put it past him if he chose not to report to the clan. See clan? Naruto's worst nightmare began to come true. How many of you are there? It doesn't concern you, the horned creature scowled. As a response, Naruto gritted his teeth and tried to block any pain while the extraction continued. Otsutsuki have massive chakra reserves, but everyone has a breaking point sooner or later. Even if the side effects of too much natural energy don't fully affect him, he only needs to sabotage his palm Rinnegan. Humor me, he finally said, how many are there? Is your clan led by someone? What was Kaguya's role in it? Keep quiet. Momoshiki issued a stern warning as his impatience began to show. TCH, he scowled as he watched on with a calculating gaze. You and the fox you carry have ridiculous amounts of chakra. It will be a viable nursery, similar to the one that currently binds you. That Shinju was created from the same beast as you, Kinshiki explained. B. The old man. Naruto became aware. It appears that you will provide chakra for a larger tree. You will soon become Shinju as well. Following Momoshiki's statement, a few minutes passed before he grunted and released his Rinnegan absorption, allowing Naruto to catch his breath. This is taking far too long, he observed as he examined his hand. We haven't even reached the halfway point. Hey. Despite his weakened state, Naruto managed to smirk. Please accept my apologies. We ninja, you see, don't like things to be simple. Our abilities took time and effort to master, despite some having an advantage over others. We're not going down without a fight. If Momoshiki's arrogant smirk was any indication, he was amused by his statement. So what's the big deal? You train and preserve yourself indefinitely, but it is ultimately futile. Such obnoxious creatures, when you become chakra fruit, you are just fodder. He shook his head. He displayed red chakra pills to him. Cinnabar elixir is what it's called. I learned a lot of jutsu before coming here. We can gain power even greater than yours with these pills, even if it took you years to master them and achieve immortality. So, Orange Hokage said solemnly, it's just like scientific ninja tool. If you have previously spoken with me, I would never find myself in this situation. He recalls his son on the verge of crying, and those blue eyes gave him a sense of familiarity. How could they not? He had seen the same look in the mirror for the first 12 years of his life. I compelled him to do it. This is why he used scientific ninja tool. I didn't even acknowledge him, instead treating him like a child. That is why. Gaargh. Whatever he was about to say was cut short as pain coursed through his body once more. Be quiet and let us take your chakra, Momoshiki said again, and Naruto amassed sage chakra despite his inner turmoil. He ignored them. He had planned to spend time with his family and try one of Hinata's homemade dishes for the first time in weeks, but Shadow Clone's memories resurfaced. Dear. I have to leave. It is critical. Boruto slammed his palms against the table. Why are you always the one who has to leave? Do you understand that it's Hokage's responsibility to protect the village when it needs him? No, I don't. He yelled as he stormed out of the house. I'm sorry about your birthday, Boruto. It's fine. I didn't expect you to show up. But what about Himawari's? She's still young, and she wants you to be there for her. Make a promise to me that you will return home. I swear. He lied, even breaking his mind and failing to keep his promise. No wonder he calls me stupid old man. He chuckled inwardly as he gazed at the dark crimson sky on the bare planet, knowing that it was only a matter of time before his orange hue faded. I can't really complain. I've been a terrible father since I stole the hat. That won't happen, Naruto finally said, his goofy grin perplexing Otsutsuki. I intend to finish this and return home to my wife, son, and daughter. After I've beaten you. Didn't you notice? This place will be your tomb. Momoshiki shook his head, a smirk on his delicate features. Naruto took a couple of deep breaths. You told me earlier that without chakra, we're just fodder. That is not correct. When a person wants to protect something important, that is when they truly become powerful. Kinshiki listened intently, seemingly interested due to his line of work as Momoshiki's guardian, and Momoshiki quirked an eyebrow but remained silent. Because the majority of your power is fabricated, it will fail you. You are only concerned with self-preservation and your desire for chakra. Kaguya operated in the same manner, and she was consumed by her own twisted ideals until she died. Is that correct? His question was met with a low growl. "You are not the first person to say that to me, and you will most certainly not be the last. All of those creatures died when they came into contact with me. You and your minions are nothing in comparison to my pills and jutsu arsenal." Naruto laughed, but it wasn't a mocking laugh, more of an amused one. "Do you still don't get it? A true shinobi is one who can withstand whatever is thrown at him. Let me explain something to you. As a shinobi, there is only one thing that matters, and it isn't the number of jutsu you have. All you need is the determination to never give up." Naruto panted, taking deep breaths to prepare for the impending battle. "Before you say anything else," Orange Hokage continued, his hands slowly pressing against the branches that bound him. "Look at you, precious hand." "What?" Momoshiki and Kinshiki's expressions were filled with terror as his palm Rinnegan slowly began to transform into stone and spread across his entire arm. Taking advantage of his opponent's lack of focus, he broke free of the branches and grabbed Momoshiki's stoned arm, much to the surprise of the extraterrestrial, before ripping it off and free falling towards the root of Shinju. Momoshiki's agonizing scream filled the air, his once white Karajinu hunting robe now stained in dark red blood. "Oh my god!" He cursed, which was unusual for a nobleman, and grabbing his wound, from which a gallon of blood began to flow, proved futile in stopping the bleeding. Momoshiki-sama. Kinshiki was alarmed to see his foster son in such a state. "Go find him," he hissed as he swallowed a handful of pills that began regenerating his wound at a slower rate than usual, but the pain persisted, much to his chagrin. Kinshiki turned around with a nod, his Byakugan activated. Rasen Shuriken is the wind style. He heard that obnoxious voice several hundred meters away from Shinju, followed by a loud screeching noise as blue, swirling jutsu was hurled towards both of them. Kinshiki was immediately on guard and stood protectively in front of his foster son. Rasen Shuriken was absorbed by his big hands and the chakra from the jutsu allowed him to forge a weapon of his choice, which in this case was a giant axe. He can absorb jutsu as well? You'll pay for it. Kinshiki moved forward at a speed that belied his larger stature, raising his axe in a deadly arc. Naruto's eyes widened and he jumped to the side, the glowing weapon of Otsutsuki making contact with the ground, causing a semi-explosion that shook them and covered the entire field in black smoke, causing him to skid backwards, barely managing to keep his balance, only for a larger figure to be onto him, wielding his axe towards his left arm and cutting it clean off. What? He watched in disbelief as his adversary poofed in a cloud of white smoke. A fake? Dozens of orange-clad Dosen clones dashed towards him, spinning spheres of blue chakra in their bandaged right hand. Kinshiki's axe caused a shockwave after he swung with his entire body, eliminating several clones in the process. Despite his best efforts, most of them remained and were quick to react. One of them clung to his arm like a persistent sea oak roach, while another knocked the axe out of the hand with his leg, and they still clung on even after the third clone slammed Rasengan into his gut, sending Shadow Clone Shuriken Jutsu. Despite using his weapons to defend himself, Kinshiki was still cut by several shuriken that passed through. He quickly gathered purple lighting around his body, his commonly used kanab in his right hand, and began deflecting them with real ease, each and every one of them dispelling upon contact. With his Byakugan activated, he noticed a movement behind him and turned to see his enemy above him, holding that pesky blue chakra shuriken. Before he could use it, Kusari chains wrapped around him and dragged him harshly to the ground. Another three tried to subdue him, but were all pierced with red stakes, causing them to flee before they could threaten him. That was the plan, and it made for a good opening for the original Naruto. Gathering yellow energy in his right hand, he blitzed towards the Otsutsuki, who was caught off guard by his speed. He barely turned around, but without having time to react effectively, a golden fist smashed into his head, breaking apart his nose, lips, and horns, as well as the entire ground on which they were standing. He was launched backwards, spinning across the ground that was painted with his dark red blood. "Bastard," he hissed, attempting to get up but falling back unconscious on the ground. "TCH." Momoshiki grunted as he saw his servant's condition, and after swallowing a handful of pills, a red and black gate with a long tongue and a pair of Rinnegan eyes emerged from the earth, only to return immediately when a spiraling sound was heard. Rasengan. Momoshiki saw Fox's jutsu coming and jumped away to avoid it, his heels landing with a soft click as he watched him emerge from the smoke that followed his attack. Without further ado, he raced towards him and landed a quick jab from which he leaned backwards. He ducked under his left hook, but was caught off guard by a roundhouse kick that he half-blocked with his single arm, the force of the kick sending him across the root of the Shinju. He quickly recovered and decided to float above in hopes of getting more space, but more and more clones began amassing and running. "Tensai Shinra!" he exclaimed, the force of his ability blowing away every clone in his path, but more and more clones appeared, overwhelming him as the fight progressed. Momoshiki was right to be upset. Even though he despises admitting it, without his right Rinnegan and one arm in general, his combat ability was dulled, and he knew he couldn't waste much chakra against these fodders. Even with his Byakugan on full display, he couldn't distinguish the original from copies because their chakra was evenly divided among them. Persistent vermin. Flying high in the air, he outstretched his single hand ahead, catching everyone scattered across a wide area in Shikamaru's Shadow Paralyzes jutsu and destroying every clone with black rekivers until none remained. "Watch over him," said the original Naruto as he watched the fight and created a couple clones. He started running towards the battle to take care of Momoshiki, but as soon as he got close to him, he grabbed the black receiver he was trying to stab him with, twisted his body, and kicked him aside, much to his annoyance. "I won't ask again," he said, his usual cheerful demeanor gone. "How many people are there? Why are you amassing chakra? Who do you work for?" "I have no reason to disclose that to the likes of you," he said matter-of-factly. "Have it your way then." Naruto had it with everything. These paled bastards thrashed his village, injured his people, tried to kill his son, niece, and brother, hurt his wife, and tried to kill him outright by stealing Kurama's chakra. He will not allow that. He flung himself into action again, Momoshiki dodging his punch with a forearm. A left cross hit him across his cheek, followed by a short curt elbow on his chin that made him bleed a little, and he staggered a few steps backwards, his alien features showing concern for the first time. With him distracted this way, Naruto delivered a punch to his solar plexus, winding him for a bit. Gah! Despite his injuries, he coughed up blood as he rolled across the floor trying to get up. "Talk," Naruto said, "final warning." At that moment, his clones' memories returned, and he saw them being defeated by Kinshiki. He heard a booming explosion on the other side of the area, and he saw a larger Otsutsuki flying towards them, wielding a red scythe that was brought down towards him in an overhead slash. He jumped away from the Shinju, which had one of its largest branches cut off as a result of Kinshiki's rampage. "It's time, Momoshiki-sama," he said hoarsely, his blood dripping from his broken face, and he looked at Naruto, feeling some remorse for causing him so much pain. Kinshiki grinned, "To safeguard something valuable, eh? I believe I understand." Naruto remained silent, always on the lookout for their next move. Otsutsuki, the bulkier one, turned to his foster son. "Momoshiki-sama, just as my ancestor did for me, it's time for you to consume my chakra," he coughed bloodily. "I don't intend to," Momoshiki spat, his gloved Rinnegan hand transforming his comrade into chakra fruit, which he began eating. "Why you?" When he saw the cannibalism display, his eyes widened, and he recoiled in shock, cursing inwardly, determined to stop him. Momoshiki, on the other hand, was having none of it. Tensai Shinra. The repulsive force of Diva Path sent him flying backwards, striking numerous branches of Gyuki's Shinju. Hokage got a better look at his new appearance, which had changed drastically. His right arm was still missing, but a white sleeve dangled freely in the wind. The upper half of his face was covered with radiating black markings that resembled sunburst patterns. One of his horns was still missing, but the left one was enlarged and curved back. He grew short claws on his fingers and toes, and his canines extended in R. "You'll pay for your arrogance, Fox," a line formed on his brow, which opened to reveal a third, gold Rinnegan. "You're next. You're in hail." Naruto stood up, his fingers pressed in the famous cross-hand seal, but was blown away by his adversary, who unleashed wind powerful enough to cut the tree in half. He accomplished this solely through his presence? Hokage exclaimed, only for his blue eyes to widen as he appeared in front of him, hitting Tenketsu on his abdomen and sending him crashing through one of the branches. He disappeared from his sight again and kicked him in the chest with such force that he spat out blood. He slapped him across the face with Chakra enchant palm, pushing him aside and adjusting his single arm, landing an open-palmed strike to side of his face. Oh? After the smoke from the explosion dissipated, Momoshiki raised his brow as he saw Naruto kneeling on the floor, covered in the red cloak of chakra that healed all of his wounds, slapping his hand on a branch of the tree with an amused smile. "Your chakra is quite versatile, but how will it fare against this?" "Takeru no Makoto, Inukai." "Wooden style?" Naruto exclaimed as several wooden avatars resembling rabid dogs roared and began relentlessly tracking him down. He leapt above them, gathering giant blue chakra that he slammed into avatars that were destroyed due to the resulting shockwave. As he began to fall towards the ground, he let out a cry of pain as one of the wooden avatar bit down on his waist, pinning him to the ground. Thinking quickly, he used his forte, after Rasengan and Shadow Clones, his wind chakra that coursed through his hands that ripped into heads of the creature. His victory was short-lived, as he saw Momoshiki emerge from King of Hell, which had consumed him during his brawl with wood avatars. Otsutsuki stepped back, his horn, arm, and now gold palm Rinnegan regenerating like nothing was wrong with them in the first place. With a feral smirk he charged forward, Naruto, getting struck by one hit, but dodging an open-palmed uppercut by an inch. Blood, he realized, pain ripping through his body as he received another hit, this time in the right cheek with a style similar to J-Ken, followed by a spinning punch that sent him sideways. Naruto attempted to counter with a quick jab powered by yellow chakra, but Momoshiki restrained him by using his hair-binding technique, to readjust his hand aside until he lost focus on his chakra. Tenin, Bonch. A repulsive force drew Naruto back into his right hand, which clenched his throat and drew blood before slamming into the ground, causing web-like cracks to appear. "Fox is irrelevant for the time being," he said, holding his hand on top of his head and focusing his Rinnegan. "What is this jutsu?" Naruto was covered in blood, bruises, and cuts, and he gritted his teeth in defiance. "Human Path's mind reading." "Correct," Momoshiki confirmed, recalling his childhood and Chunin exams. "You endured quite a lot, like this, Shinobi, as you previously stated." He struggled, but Otsutsuki had a firm grip on his scalp. "To think you vulgar creatures would know so much about our Rinnegan. I suppose I shouldn't be surprised after meeting your comrade who had one similar to mine." "I see. Even if you died, Fox would reappear in a different location over time. It's a shame your chakra is being wasted, but it's a necessary cost." A malicious grin appeared on his face. "I don't mind waiting. Die." At that moment, a burst of chakra erupted from Naruto, and he grabbed Otsutsuki's hand. Chakra covered his entire body, healing his injuries in the process, forming a yellow cloak with his undershirt being pitch black and 6 glowing magatama surrounding his neck. Black lines ran the length of his arms and legs, with his eyes changing from regular blue to orange with black cross slits instead of his pupil. Naruto pushed Momoshiki, who looked on cautiously before jumping away, slamming an elbow on his forehead, specifically on his third eye, which sent him rolling back with a cry of pain. Momoshiki adjusted himself, only for a chakra arm to clench around his form and pull him roughly towards the enraged Hokage, driving his fist into his face, sending him flying backwards yet again. That will not happen. You ready, Kurama? Naruto declared boldly, his six paths sage mode Kurama cloak surrounding him before he thought inwardly. Is it even necessary to inquire? Let's do this, his devoted companion said, sarcastically. Right. Naruto was about to strike, but paused. With him absorbing ninjutsu, only taijutsu will work on him. So, in that case. His golden eyes, which indicated six paths power bestowed upon him by Otsutsuki Hagoromo, vanished, replaced by dark gold with a horizontal line and fox slit with orange pigmentation on the corner of his eyes. Although weaker than his previous form, it will be much more useful against foes like Momoshiki, who needs to land an attack that he can't see. I see. Nagato brought it to your attention? Kurama was curious. Nagato, Naruto said, nodding and slowly approaching his opponent. You. Momoshiki sneered, his clothes ripped and his black and white skin covered in scratches and bruises. Byakugan and all three of his Rinnegan activated, the latter now red instead of regular purple. Several chakra pills formed from his Rinnegan and he swallowed them, letting out an inhuman roar and unleashing a gust of wind that was blown towards Naruto, who raised his hands to cover himself before resuming his approach. You idiot who dares to defy a god. It's time to call it quits. He stated this. God? Naruto raised an eyebrow, you endangered innocent lives and ate your comrade for power. You're nothing more than a monster at this point. The irony, he said calmly, if we're talking about monsters, then we're both monsters. Naruto's expression was solemn. Do you want to discuss irony, Datbeo? You speak of humans as lower beings while killing your own like a wild caged animal. Kinshiki loved you, but you tossed him aside like he was thrash. He was nothing more than a servant to me. Naruto snarled. Transfer of power, Momoshiki continued, fist clenched. That's our clan's law, and nobody should defy it. Kaguya did, snorted Hokage this time. And your planet will suffer as a result of her betrayal, he sneered, warning him, humans were never meant to receive chakra. As I previously stated, you are also a monster, but even if you manage to defeat me, we will not stop coming until we have drained this planet of all its chakra and completed the task that Kaguya began. With his sensing abilities, Naruto knew that this wasn't an empty threat. There was barely any life on this planet, and it was a miracle that he even managed to gather nature chakra capable of overflowing Momoshiki's chakra network. He reasoned that if he could go into regular sage mode when he fought Toneri in space, on the moon, he could do it anywhere. After all, nature is everywhere, no matter how damaged. Like you did with this one? Precisely. The same thing will happen to your planet soon. They met at a single point, with Momoshiki stopping Naruto's hand by clenching it, and Naruto stopping Momoshiki's hand by restraining his wrists. Momoshiki intended to change that by jerking his hand free and thrusting his now free left palm forward, only for Naruto to cling to his right hand and jump over it before hitting him with a spinning back fist that Otsutsuki blocked. Byakugan wielder pressed on, going for two hit strikes that Naruto dodged, before the unexpected happened and he drove his chakra-powered clawed palm into his liver, making him grit his teeth in pain. A well-placed J-Ken strike sent him stumbling few steps back, but with his Kurama cloak and sage mode he recovered quickly and did a backflip until he landed a reasonable distance from him, slightly panting. If I can't use jutsu, then... He punched the ground, causing debris to fly in the air before kicking them at his opponent. using chakra arms in addition to throwing them for better results. A couple of them managed to graze him, but he made a short work on them with a single Shinra Tensai just in time to see a huge chunk of earth heading in his direction. They raced towards each other, becoming nothing more than blurs that ripped through the ground. Otsutsuki attempted to slash Naruto's shoulder with his crimson weapon, but Orange Hokage foiled his plan by catching the blade and snapping it in half, before he was pushed aside, Momoshiki returning to his usual fighting stance. From there on, a more fierce taijutsu battle commenced, both of them failing at any attempt at hurting the other and running into a stall. Eventually, Naruto managed to swat away his hand as he landed a solid hit on the tip of his nose, which did more damage than it should have under normal circumstances, due to nature energy surrounding him. He twisted his body to evade his elbow, grabbing his hand before kicking him away once more. Angered by this, Momoshiki tried to retaliate by throwing a low kick that was stopped when Naruto raised his knee. Hey! Momoshiki jumped sideways, an arrogant little smile on his face, as the punch completely missed him. Bam! Or so he thought. For a reason unknown to him, an invisible energy gathered, causing him to receive a full hit and was sent reeling on the ground from the impact of Naruto's attack as a result. How? Momoshiki's wondered, flabbergasted by this new development. He went through memories that he read when he had a grasp on his mind, but nothing came up. I suppose that link was cut off before I had a chance to get to that part. He chose to leave that thought for later. Extraterrestrial got up, creating black receivers and red stakes, sending them hurling towards him, which Naruto deflected by flaring up Kurama's chakra and racing to him, engaging in taijutsu clash again. He caught his hands, hitting a tenketsu point located near his ribs. He winced, pain flaring through his body, but Naruto endured it. He wanted to use a very special taijutsu move similar to Frog Kumite that he had previously used. He landed open hand strikes with both of his hands on each side of Momoshiki's head, using all the strength he had at the time. Attack sends ripples of natural energy that emanate through the struck target from the initial point of contact. Why you? What exactly did you do? Momoshiki covered his ears, blood flowing freely from them, his Byakugan deactivated for the time being. He clenched his fangs and was barely aware of Naruto curling his hand into a fist and going for another punch, which connected, spinning him through the air and harshly falling onto the hard ground. He steadied himself, ignoring pain that flared up in his nose and ears. I don't think he'll try to dodge again. After being hit twice by seemingly invisible punches, he reasoned that Momoshiki would be more cautious when engaging in hand-to-hand combat. Naruto planned to overpower him with the added boost that Six Paths Senjutsu provides him. With better protection, durability, speed, and power, he will stop him as soon as possible and return back home to his family. Momoshiki formed a red shield from his chakra and braced himself for a punch that rocked the earth itself, damaging what was left of the Shinju even more, causing several branches to fall off of it and breaking the shield upon impact. After that, he decided to go for a spinning axe kick that was half blocked when he put up his hands in a cross shape. Momoshiki grabbed his leg, spinning him, and an open-palmed strike found its way to his chest, sending him across the red sky of Bear Planet. He slammed his hand on the ground, wooden avatars emerging once more that flew into the sky in pursuit of the Hokage. Naruto let out a pained "why?" Momoshiki's eyes glowed with a hungry gleam, and he took off in the direction of the Rasen Shuriken without hesitation. Why would he do such a thing? Naruto immediately pursued him, gliding into the sky in pursuit of the horned individual. There is no doubt that he's hiding something, possibly another ability that I'm not aware of. In either case, it's better not to take the chance. With his activated Byakugan, he was immediately alerted of his presence and slammed his foot into his chest before he had time to react. The impact of the attack sent Naruto spiraling downward, red Kusari chains tightening firmly around his form, and he crashed into the ground, just in time to see Momoshiki absorb his jutsu and heal himself of all previous injuries. This is an excellent skill. You have my gratitude, he told him, his voice taunting, his left arm raised above his head that unleashed Rasenshuriken twice its previous size. Now die. He can unleash even more powerful absorbed jutsu? He had forgotten that he could use Shikamaru's shadow paralyzes on shadow clones that were attempting to restrain him. I was irresponsible. Shit. Naruto cursed, breaking free from the chains as Rasenshuriken, along with another fire jutsu that combined with it to form a swirling vortex of fire chakra, rushed down towards him, colliding with him and causing an echoing explosion. He summoned Kurama's avatar head, which survived the attack. Chibaku Tensai. Orange's eyes narrowed in concern as he noticed Momoshiki clasping his hands together. Right after that, he felt a gravitational pull as he and the rubble all around him were yanked from the ground and yanked towards the center of an already half-formed sphere. Cage Heath Arson Prison. Pale Celestial exclaimed, simultaneously forming fire-based chakra and encasing Naruto in a flaming red and yellow cage. He clenched his fist, with additional pressure and heat from jutsu burning him, causing a small explosion before being trapped inside the completed Chibaku Tensai that floated in the clouded crimson sky. Momoshiki exhaled a tired sigh and swallowed the few remaining pills, but was disappointed at the small amount he had. I never thought I'd be pushed this far. When an intense howl echoed through the air, it was Kurama's head poking out of the sphere construct, unleashing a fire as it dug its way out. Gold Byakugan's eyes widened when he saw his Chibaku Tensai crumble in seconds, despite his efforts. A golden fox emerged from it, with 9 tails and several pitch-black markings, and landed on the ground, causing a semi-earthquake. So it finally appeared in its full form, the celestial being observed, discarding the last shreds of clothing as several vines and roots emerged from the ground, forming a massive wooden monkey with constant fire coursing through his body. Momoshiki stood on top of it, bracing himself for a fight. When he stretched his hands out, wooden dogs and a larger dragon, similar to the one Hashirama used, emerged from the Shinju stump and bit down on Kurama's arm and legs. He ripped them apart with a howl, his chakra arms assisting him. Naruto saw a wooden dragon charging at his neck, but he extended the length of one of the tails that intercepted it. Tail transformed into a massive chakra arm and used 6 paths Senjutsu chakra to crush it before it could make any more moves against him. Naruto had never been more enthusiastic about the 6 paths chakra than he was right now. Even though wood release is a natural counter to Biju, he can still overpower it due to the increased strength, speed, and durability it grants its user. Kurama appears to enjoy it as well, which isn't surprising given how many times enemies have used wood release to restrain him in the past. Aside from training with Captain Yamato and Moegi, he now has the opportunity to fight someone who uses one of his most despised techniques after the Sharingan while not being completely vulnerable to it. Ha 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 ha. It was meant to be a mocking laugh, but his deep voice made him sound like a cliché villain from a Saturday morning cartoon Boruto used to watch as a kid. He ripped through another wooden structure, crushed the second, and stomped on the third, all while taunting their adversary. You have no authority here. With a growl, the alien launched a flaming dragon into his chest, knocking him back a few steps. He squeezed it with all of his might until it faded, leaving only a few sparks of fire. Monkey punched Kurama in the face and grabbed one of his tails before spinning him around and slamming him into the ground, causing a massive shockwave. The wooden creature continued to throw punches at Kurama's face, who wrapped 2 of his tails around its arm, immobilizing him. Naruto scowled at his situation, sensing movement to his left and seeing a massive flamed pheasant created by Momoshiki from lava beneath the ground. The pheasant swooped down at him as it took flight. Naruto drew his arm and caught it, but it still exploded when it got close to him, causing his vision to blur for a split second. "Let's end this," he said, tightening his grip on the wooden arm restrained by Kurama's tails and breaking it off, the giant monkey stepping back, giving Naruto enough time to jolt back onto his feet. Naruto admired Momoshiki's expression when he realized he could still fly in Kurama's avatar. He dashed towards him, grabbing the monkey by the neck and slamming him close to the Shinju, breaking him apart. Before Celestial Being could recover, two large yellow chakra fists smashed what was left of the wooden structure on which he was standing, causing an explosion of fire that spread throughout the area. His Kurama avatar, chakra mode, and 6 paths power all vanished as he landed on the ground. Kurama reminded him, "It's not over yet." "I know, and since all jutsu we throw at him will just backfire, we need to get rid of his Rinnegan again to end him." Naruto had an idea, and he needed to do it quickly. Momoshiki extricated himself from the Shinju on which he had fallen after his creation had been destroyed. His white pants were blood-stained and torn, and he had numerous cuts on his body. Over and over again. He growled, gulping down a handful of pills that healed him. "Of all the creatures I've encountered in my life, you are easily the most persistent.
I've been told this many times."
Naruto activated his gold Byakugan and braced himself before flashing towards him at breakneck speed. Momoshiki launched black receivers at him, intending to restrain him, but Naruto flung them away, his kunai sending sparks as they collided. Naruto landed on a branch and felt a gravitational pull toward his opponent, who clasped his left hand around his neck, squeezing it. "It's all over." When a clone appeared from the ground between them, he released him and aimed an uppercut at Momoshiki's chin, who was aware of it thanks to his activated Byakugan. He smiled as he held up his Rinnegan hand to absorb the clone, but Naruto quickly dispensed with it, launching itself towards the Rinnegan and driving the kunai through until it punctured his hand. "You worm!" Otsutsuki shrieked, sensing chakra from the kunai but deciding to punish him first before looking into it. Rage overtook him, and he fashioned a crimson blade and brought it down on his head. Naruto moved to the side to avoid it, but he was still caught, albeit on a different part of his body. As the blade cut off Naruto's bandaged artificial limb and sent it rolling on the floor, the sickening sound of flesh being torn was heard. Hokage bit his lower lip, his body tingling with pain. He jumped away and landed on rocky ground just in time to see Momoshiki's chest open, revealing the fully formed chakra cannon that Rinnegan's Shirad grants him. As Celestial unleashed a powerful blue chakra blast, his eyes widened. Earth release. Earth-style wall. He went through one-handed hand seals and slammed his hand on the ground after struggling at first. A massive wall of solid earth rose up, taking the full brunt of Momoshiki's blast and breaking apart due to the intensity of the attack while still saving him. Naruto huffed and removed his ripped orange jacket, sweat streaming down his face as he made a seal. It's time to call it quits. Momoshiki recoiled in shock, cursing inwardly as hundreds of shadow clones appeared and launched themselves at him. He ducked under one and kicked the other, but he was surrounded by more clones that appeared from every direction. Shinra Tensai. He yelled, the repulsive force of Divapath's pinnacle ability driving every clone in his path away. Don't let up. We're almost there. Yelled one of them, making one hand seal that spawned two more before exploding in a puff of white smoke. To his horror, this kept happening over and over again. Before they vanished, another one or two would appear and take his place, muting his ability. He concentrated more chakra on it, even having to deactivate his Byakugan as a result, but they wouldn't stop. He reluctantly let go of his jutsu, and Byakugan activated once more, focusing on dodging and, frankly, surviving the clones' attacks. But he flew into the air when one of them managed to punch him. You. Zu. M.A. Key. 3 other clones landed several punches and kicks, sending him upwards until he saw another one coming down at him with a somersaulting heel drop, which he blocked with his hands, forcing him downwards where he landed on his feet. He used another Shinra Tensei to dispel another swarm of clones, shaking his head to clear his mind. The smoke from their defeat cleared away, revealing a bright whirling chakra shuriken heading straight for him. As it was absorbed into his body, a golden barrier formed around his figure. He despised this power. It was far inferior to his unique ability, but given how Fox's weapon destroyed his Rinnegan yet again, he should be grateful that he even has this one to protect himself. His weapon. He realized as his Byakugan noticed that chakra was still coursing through the metal object despite being far away from the user. Puff. Following that irritating sound, all he felt was excruciating pain. His hand was blown away, blood flowing freely as he hissed, and what appeared to be a permanent scowl formed on his face ever since he had the misfortune of meeting such impudent animal. Clone that transformed from the weapon and destroyed his hand rolled on the tree stump and immediately went into action, but was quickly dealt with when he punctured him with a red sharp stake, thanks to Kinshiki's ability. Rasengan. He averted his gaze upwards, another, presumably original, in the air, a massive rotating sphere of blue chakra in his left hand, brought down towards him. Wincing, he didn't have enough concentration or time to use Preta Path to absorb it, he didn't think he could at this point. Instead, he extended his arm, causing a red rotating chakra of the same shape and size to emerge from his Rinnegan. Their clash produced an earth-shattering shockwave that devastated the battlefield and ripped through what remained of the Shinju. Naruto pushed harder than ever before, thinking about everything he was fighting to protect and everyone who had helped him become the man he is today. Images of Haku, Zabuza Team 7, Konoha 12, Iruka Sensei, Ero Senin, Tsunade Obaa-chan, Shizune 1-chan, Gaara and his siblings, Nagato, Konan, Yahiko, Mom, Dad. Flashed through his mind. And, perhaps most importantly, his current family. Family that he neglected due to his poor reasoning and will make amends with once he returns. He will not break his word this time. Hinata, Himawari, Boruto. I promise I'll make it up to you all. The blue orb pushed the red one back until it burst, burning away his skin up to his elbow and ramming itself onto the target as he twisted his Rasengan, which evaporated everything in its path. Naruto yelled, pushing further as his opponent stared in disbelief, his figure turning red from the intensity of his jutsu and blinding everything in his path. Do you sense my presence, Fox? What? Naruto recoiled in surprise, seeing the pale face of pre-absorption Momoshiki staring at him, an analytical expression on his features. His Byakugan was deactivated, but it still felt like it could gaze into his soul.
They were floating in some clouded orange and crimson space, with what appeared to be several pieces of wood from Shinju on which they had previously fought.
Kurama. He asked his partner telepathically, what's going on? Nothing. There was no response. Oi. Kurama? Are you present? Please respond. He can't hear you, Momoshiki said, as if reading his mind. What have you done to him? I wanted this to be a private discussion. At this point, Byakugan was activated, staring into his blue eyes. I see. When you were a child, you demonstrated that fate isn't fixed by defeating someone with eyes like mine. Remarkable. Uzumaki Naruto, you truly have the ability to defy fate. His face showed surprise that he addressed him by his name rather than some derogatory nickname, but a solemn expression appeared on his face when he heard Neji's name, and Momoshiki undoubtedly gained the information when he read his mind. Your inventions and naive misplaced trust in people will only prove to be your downfall in the end. Otsutsuki's white eyes narrowed. Naruto's blue eyes widened slightly before hardening dangerously. Explain. It wasn't supposed to end like this, he said again, ignoring his question. However, given your inability to deal with others, it will be beneficial for your people if you do receive it. Remember this. Those who defeat gods cannot remain ordinary individuals, Momoshiki said as he took hold of his left arm, a tingling sensation coursing through his body. Reflect well on my words as you proceed with your actions in the future, Fox, he said as he began to fade away in the form of dust. He then vanished. Shinju was completely obliterated, and the attack continued to travel at a rapid speed, breaking away ground and soaring into the atmosphere after it separated the clouds, where it finally bursted into small particles of blue light. It was all over. A sense of relief washed over Naruto's body, like a nice warm broth from Ichiraku ramen, and he got up from the floor and headed towards the now destroyed Shinju, looking on at the warm sunlight that reached through the disappeared clouds for the first time since Momoshiki ravaged this place, and when he really thought about it, the entire planet is one big cemetery that was filled up by 2 members of the Otsutsuki clan. Only 2 did this, he said, his voice barely above a whisper as he gazed into the sky, imagining all future enemies. How many do you think there are? Are we really safe? With a shake of his head he jumped down and digged through the rubble until he found his orange jacket and pulled it on. It got its right sleeve cut off, but it is fine since his arm went rolling somewhere, probably destroyed already from their battle. Entering Sage mode confirmed it, since he couldn't sense any chakra that arm would radiate with. It's a miracle how the jacket survived in the first place. Naruto. When he heard that voice, his gloomy expression was replaced by a bright smile. Kurama. Thank God you're all right. What happened to you? I really do not know myself. He admitted before elaborating. Our connection was cut off for a brief moment, and when it returned. Kurama paused, choosing how to form his next words. You appear to be different. What happened? Serious look was on his face now. I can't explain it, because I don't really understand it myself. During our final clash he pulled me into some sort of pocket dimension, where he began saying how I defied fate and said that those who defeat a god cannot remain normal. It would seem that he was arrogant until the very end. Kurama joked, although it fell flat in the current situation. I sense chakra of third presence in your body. I know, he said, his eyes widening when he saw a black diamond-shaped seal resting in the center of his palm, which was now completely healed from burns. Curse mark? He exclaimed. It's probably some kind of seal. It appears that they operate in a manner similar to Orochimaru's, he explained. He also transferred his chakra to his targets, and Momoshiki's chakra is undoubtedly the one in your body. Right. He clenched his fist, determination settling on his face. No power comes without a price. He wouldn't do this as he won't benefit from it. Whatever the case, we'll have to look closely into it once we return home. Even Sasuke might have heard something about this during his travels. Sounds like a plan. Naruto thought he heard a playful tone in his voice. How do you intend to return home? And then his serious demeanor vanished, replaced by one of panic and hopelessness, his jaw agape in shock. Shit. He yelled, flapping his hands frantically. How are we going to get back home? We're stranded on a foreign planet with no life. You've got shadow clones. Not funny, Kurama, Naruto responded, eliciting a laugh from his companion. Damn it. He continued to rant while kicking one of the small pebbles and watching it roll. To think I'm going to die this way, I should have finished my training with Dad's Hiraishin no Jutsu. I've been saying that to you for years and you never picked it up again. With your clones and my chakra, it would be easy to escape this dimension if you had a mark placed in Konoha. You could even send a shadow clone or 2 and help Sasuke through dimension to scout out dangers, Kurama reasoned. All you have to do now is wait for Sasuke. Good point, Naruto said as he rubbed his temple with his hand and exited the massive crater left by his fight with Momoshiki in an instant. He looked on in surprise, the size of it easily larger than Konoha, though not by much. I tried, but I really lost focus, he admitted sheepishly as he walked around aimlessly. Although I performed better than my father's guard, it was unlike anything I had ever learned before. All those seals are complex. Then I had to study, got married to Hinata, had Boruto and Himawari, became Hokage, and drowned in paperwork. Life happened, Datbayo. Then take this as a wake-up call. You can't slack off and pretend that everything will be fine when the reality is that it won't, Kurama warned sternly. What if this happens again and Sasuke isn't there to save you? You could be at their mercy if they use space-time ninjutsu to transport you to their dimension, and Momoshiki Brat hinted that they report their activities to his clan, which means clan will be aware of their absence, as they will not return, Naruto grimly concluded, worriedly chewing on his lower lip. Momoshiki said he gave me this seal because I won't be able to stop others, and as much as I hate to admit it, he might be right. We don't know what's out there. He shielded his eyes from the sun, staring at the beautiful crimson sky with determination on his features. But we'll deal with it. Together. Naruto smiled as he concluded that Kurama had returned. Whatever challenges await them, they will overcome them as they always have. He's certain of it. Now, if only Sasuke would show up. Boruto, contrary to popular belief, adores his father. He was always there for them, playing with them, teaching his sister and him basic ninja arts principles, and etching life lessons he learned as a child. Boruto was happiest years before he took the hat because his hero and the person he most looked up to at the time was always present in his life. People all over the world admired his father and frequently told him about his accomplishments in his youth, particularly during the Fourth Great Ninja War, after which he was dubbed hero and savior of the world. He was initially skeptical, believing that some stories were exaggerated, but as time passed, he realized that their words had weight. Boruto overheard his parents discussing his mission that he participated in before becoming Hokage several times as a child. They frequently shifted from A to S ranks, with the occasional B rank thrown in for good measure. That alone should have been proof of his father's shinobi abilities. More surprising was the length of the missions and the state to which his father always returned. Not only did he return to them in days, but the injuries that regular ninja would sustain from such high-ranking missions were non-existent on him, which only reinforced his father's strength in his eyes. That, unfortunately, began to dwindle over time. He was always described as a bright and intelligent child. His abilities and potential as a ninja are unparalleled, as he is descended from two powerful bloodlines. And yet, no matter how badly he wanted to forge his own path and separate himself from his father, it wasn't enough for the people of the village to see him as anything other than Naruto's son. Even when he discovered shadow clones on his own, people pretended it was nothing out of the ordinary. Because it should come as no surprise that the son of a war hero and the strongest Kage in history learned B-rank technique before even starting academy, a technique that is also commonly used by Jonins. It irritated him greatly. His blonde hair, whisker marks, and blue eyes, which were strikingly similar to his father's, only made the task more difficult, and despite his best efforts, he was always cast in his father's shadow.
Boruto was constantly under pressure to deliver by everyone in the Konoha, even before his father became the village's leader.
The pressure increased when his father finally realized his lifelong ambition of becoming Hokage. Because of his subsequent absence from their lives, his administration began to turn into resentment. If the stories he'd heard were true, he won battles in the war with only shadow clones. If that's the case, he should have no trouble creating a couple of clones to handle extra paperwork so he can return home to them sooner. He refused, preferring to spend time in that dreadful office, drowning in piles of papers and leaving his mother to deal with them. So he acted out, pulling numerous pranks on him in desperate need of attention, which was only given to him in the form of regular lectures and scoldings, which enraged him even more. This cycle continued for several months, even years, during Boruto's academy education, until Boruto chose to be indifferent to their relationship, or better yet, lack thereof. He didn't care about himself or the expectations others had of him as Hokage's son. He was still upset when his father ignored his mother and sister. Unfortunately, when he was unable to stop White Zetsu during Team 7's mission, the pressure increased tenfold. That was the first time he felt completely helpless in the face of his adversary. To become stronger, he began his Rasengan training with Konohamaru's guidance, not only to punish his father for sending Shadow Clone to his sister's birthday, but also to pull his own weight in the exams and not disappoint. To say the least, his attempt at a rank jutsu was pitiful. He felt terrible about it, and his feelings were heightened when Sasuke-san, despite his failure, took him under his wing due to what Boruto believed was his status as Naruto's son. Boruto was a prodigy who knew he had the skills to compete, but a small voice in his head was always telling him that he wasn't good enough, that he would fail and make a mockery of himself in international competition. His confidence was shaken by his inability to fight Zetsu, and that was when he snapped and took coat from Katasuke. He was aware that cheating was wrong, but he was motivated by his emotions at the time. You can't simply win when your father is a powerful figure like Hokage, the great hero of the war. People expect greatness from you. His family, friends, and even his father want him to succeed despite the fact that he hasn't been taught anything since he was a child. If he won his fights, everyone would say it was because it was expected of him. After all, he is the Hokage's son. Boruto can't imagine how bad it would look if he lost in the second round to that Kirigakure team. People would be disappointed, badmouth him, and call him a disgrace to the Hokage's name if he lost there. His father stripped him of his shinobi status and said he would talk to him later, despite never having done so before, caused him to snap. Iwabe and Sarada had always told him to look at things from a different angle. Hokage would not be placed on such a high pedestal and respected by everyone alive if he lacked the necessary skills. Boruto strongly disagreed with them because all subsequent evidence pointed to the contrary. After taking that job, his father spent the majority of his time in the office and did nothing to help out in their household, leaving his mother to handle everything. He slept in late, put his shoes on backwards, and ate that ramen. To summarize, he was uncool in Boruto's eyes and not the image of a war hero that everyone portrayed him to be. That is, until recently. Stories from the past pale in comparison to his father's sheer power during the invasion of two pale creatures with Byakugan. Boruto began to see him in a new light. His warm chakra coated everyone like a shield to protect them from the ensuing explosion. He could have easily countered the Black Orb, as Sasuke-san said, but everyone would have died if he did. Boruto deduced from that statement that his father willingly chose to sacrifice himself to ensure the safety of others. To keep his family safe. And he did exactly that. Seeing this, he gradually began to realize the spiritual heritage that older generations, including his father, embodied, will of fire. To treat everyone in the village as family, and for shinobi to believe in, cherish, and fight to protect the village, just as previous generations had done. Although he initially disliked such ideals because he saw them as a lame excuse for his father to neglect his true family, his father's resolve and selfless attitude in the face of certain death proved him wrong. Now he can only hope that they will arrive in time to assist him in defeating those invaders, who, according to his father and Sasuke, are members of the same clan as the progenitor of Chakra herself. Boruto knows he shouldn't go because, quite frankly, he has no right to be involved in a fight with godly threats, but Sasuke-san, for God's sake, vouched for him when other Kages were against it. He can now do his best and help in any way he can if necessary. This is the plan. As he looked ahead, Sasuke's voice broke him out of his reverie. They recently jumped through the portal created by his Rinnegan and began traveling through various dimensions. It honestly felt like something from one of Kagemas's favorite movies. He would be more excited about the opportunity to travel to different worlds if the situation wasn't so serious. First and foremost, we must free Naruto. Despite being weakened by the forced extraction, I can still strongly sense his chakra. Is there a connection between the 6 paths? Chojuro wondered. Correct, said Shadow Hokage, nodding. We can still feel each other because of the yin and yang power that Otsutsuki Hagoromo bestowed on us during the war. Boruto raised an eyebrow. He had no idea that both his father and master derived power from Shinobi's father. He shook his head, his blue eyes more determined. This was not the time to be concerned with such trivial matters. As we all know, we'll be facing 3 Otsutsuki, each with their own set of skills, Sasuke explained. I recommend I handle the one with the fishing rod because I have the most experience dealing with Rinnegan and can quickly evade his attacks that steal jutsu due to my speed and Rinnegan teleportation. Aren't we a little arrogant? Kuretsuchi joked, to which Sasuke responded with a smirk. Based on what you told us about Kinshiki's abilities, it would be prudent for Chojuro and me to face him, Tsuchikage added, a rush of excitement coursing through her body. Even as a respected Kage, she maintained a boisterous demeanor in battles against strong opponents. Chojuro's Kenjutsu mastery will keep him busy, and since he lacks absorption power like the other 2, I'm free to use my earth and lava release. Speaking of which, Gaara's monotone voice added, Momoshiki's ability to absorb ninjutsu will be quite problematic for all of us. That's why I'll be the best person to fight him. My sand will keep him at bay because he can't absorb it, while Darui will overwhelm him with his taijutsu. Before turning to his apprentice, Sasuke nodded, satisfied with their plan. Boruto, for the time being, stand back. If we all fall, you must act and use your Rasengan. Boruto's expression darkened as he read his statement. However, Rasengan is. Don't worry about it, Sasuke said with a smile. Just have faith in me. Right, he said, nodding as the portal's end approached. They exited Sasuke's portal and began to fall to the ground, their eyes widening in disbelief at the sight of massive destruction in a ruined stump of a tree in this dimension. What? They landed quietly, as any well-trained shinobi should. Boruto's heart was racing every time he looked at the demolished landscape. There are no signs of invaders anywhere, except for his father. His father had also gone missing. Did they already fight? He ignored Uncle Gaara's voice and began looking for any clues that might point to his father's whereabouts, blinking away tears that threatened to fall from his blue eyes. He wobbled slightly but steadied himself, turning his gaze downwards and noticing a piece of orange fabric stuck beneath a rock he almost tripped over. Dad. Now that you mention it, Grandpa used to be a Hokage as well, but Dad says that when he was a kid, Grandpa Hokage wasn't even in this world anymore. That means Dad grew up not knowing a thing about this enjoyable father-son situation, didn't he? Dad is the only one who doesn't know what this is like. Boruto isn't sure when the tears started streaming down his cheeks. As he held a shredded piece of his father's jacket like his life depended on it, his knees hit the ground and small whimpers escaped his lips. Outside, Sasuke's face was as stoic as ever, seemingly calculated as it surveyed the situation. On the inside, however, he was in turmoil. He noticed that he couldn't sense Naruto's chakra after passing through a portal. He dismissed it as a fleeting thought, but now that he was here, it became clear. His brother, in all but blood, had either left this dimension and traveled to another where their 6 paths connection couldn't reach him, or he. He shook his head, trying to shake such thoughts from his mind. He'd be better off not jumping to conclusions right now. If history has taught him anything, it is that Naruto always manages to get out of difficult situations and perform a miracle regardless of the odds stacked against him. I found him. Kage's booming voice cut through the barren wasteland at that precise moment. Turning his gaze to his directions, he noticed him rapidly waving his hands. "Don't worry, Boruto. He's safe," Kage assured the young boy, with Sasuke noticing the ensuing sigh. "He's just taking a break." Boruto's face showed a range of emotions, including sadness, surprise, relief, and happiness, as evidenced by the beaming smile that stretched across his face. Sasuke allowed purple chakra avatar to surround both of them as they began floating in the sky, his own lips turning upwards. "Alright, let's go." It took them just over 20 seconds to get to their destination. As they hovered above it, Sasuke slowly descended his Susanoo avatar until it vanished completely in small traces of purple aura, as if it had never existed in the first place. "Dad." Boruto dashed towards his father without hesitation, with Sasuke trailing close behind. Uchiha's brow furrowed slightly as he noticed Boruto's hasty steps come to a halt. He realized why after he arrived at them. An awkward silence ensued. A phantom wind blew through the void dimension as all Kages present expressed mixed feelings about the state of their Hokage. "Ramen-chan," Naruto muttered as he lay on his right hip, his artificial arm or lack thereof hidden from the small audience gathered around him. Storage seals that could be used on one's body or as part of clothing were scattered around him. They had kanji on them that looked similar to Sasuke's wristbands, which had sealed shurikens laced with lighting chakra. Knowing how dangerous a person with the name Otsutsuki can be, everyone except Sasuke expected their fellow Kage to have sealed various weapons and tools required for combat. Even if one is seated behind a desk most of the time and isn't on active shinobi duty, they should still be prepared because such a situation can occur even in this peaceful era. Instead, there were a dozen instant ramen cups of various flavors gathered around Genin, who had been transformed into Kage. "Really?" Chojuro asked, a weak laugh escaping his lips. "Idiot," Sasuke exclaimed softly as he saw his friend sleeping form in a makeshift bed made of earth style. Aside from ramen, he's relieved to be alive. Was he really eating ramen in this situation? Kuretsuchi asked. Her previous motivated expression turned sour at the prospect of an exciting fight turned sour at the image ahead of her. "Where are the adversaries?" "He appears to be fine, albeit tired, which is to be expected given who his opponents were." Sasuke searched his surroundings but found no trace of the Otsutsuki trio that had wreaked havoc on their village. Nonetheless, his onyx eyes narrowed at the black diamond-shaped mark that rested on his friend's open palm, the aura it emitted making him uneasy. It felt similar to the curse seals Orochimaru created while also being completely different. Its shape reminded him of his wife's Byakugan, and from what he could tell at first glance, it serves a similar purpose. However, it is more mysterious and dangerous. Sasuke started approaching Naruto to wake him up so he could get the full story of what happened, but he stopped when he sensed movement approaching them. He watched Boruto land feet first on his father's gut as he sidestepped to the right. If it weren't for his son's distress, Naruto's twisted face in pain would be hilarious to watch. Gah! Hokage jerked up from the earth structure, clutching his stomach in pain from the hit. In his mindscape, Kurama was laughing his head off, but Naruto ignored it in favor of dodging a fist that followed. "Dumb old man. Talk to him," he advised, his stern tone losing all humor. "Believe me, it's long overdue. Your child is in pain." "I know, Datbeo. I should have done it years ago." As his son's leg collided with it, he raised his left hand. A loud noise reverberated throughout the room. Boruto performed a famous cross-shaped seal, causing an exact replica of himself to appear in midair from a plume of white smoke. His clone took the initiative, launching an axe kick at the older blonde, who was also stopped. "Be Boruto!" he exclaimed, but his son ignored him. "Hima, Mom, and I thought you died to those pale bastards," he yelled, punching wildly. "Instead of attempting to return to us, you've been eating ramen and sleeping." What should his reaction be? How should this situation be handled? Boruto truly believed his father died at the hands of those Otsutsuki, only to discover that he is alive and well, sleeping after consuming countless cups of that hideous excuse for a food. Isn't he ashamed to sleep carelessly while everyone back home assumed the worst had happened to him? Boruto gritted his teeth, growing increasingly frustrated as each of his attacks was blocked or dodged. He shouldn't be surprised by his father's demeanor. He is the father who preferred office work to spending time with his family. Even when he spends time with them, Dad has to leave soon with some half-baked claim that the entire village is his family and needs him. Dad broke his man-to-man promise by sending a shadow clone to his own daughter's birthday party. Dad has arrived. His movements became slow and rigid, as if he had lost all of the strength and accuracy he had a few moments before. "I understand how difficult it is to not have your father present on special occasions." Boruto stepped back and stood several meters away from his father, staring at his worried expression. Blue eyes blinked slowly at first, but quickly began to blink quickly, desperately trying to stop another flow from his increasingly puffy eyes. "But it's different for you because you have a father who is present." Despite this, he was on the verge of losing him. Naruto charged at his son, kneeling down to his level and wrapping his single arm around him in a hug. "I apologize, Boruto." Boruto sobbed into his shoulder, emotionally exhausted from the day but relieved that his father was still alive and well. "You ought to be, stupid old man," he muttered into his shoulder, eliciting a few giggles from the small audience that gathered to watch their interaction. He offered him a small smile after separating from him and rubbing his eyes to wipe away the few remaining tears, which Naruto returned with his own. "We'll be right back," he said, putting his hand on his son's shoulder as he faced Sasuke and the 4 Kages. "We need to have a long overdue conversation." All of them had a look of understanding on their faces, and Sasuke simply nodded. After that, they both vanished in a swirl of leaves, seemingly untraceable. They were back on the battlefield where Naruto had defeated Momoshiki and Kinshiki. Naruto decided to sit on the edge of a huge crater, motioning with his remaining hand for his son to do the same, feeling more mentally tired than physically. Boruto, his mind now clear and focused, finally noticed his father's limblessness and rushed to his side, concern lining his features. "Your arm, Dad." "Aw." Naruto let out a surprised yelp when he was tackled by Boruto, who was inspecting him. "It was severed during the fight." "Don't be concerned." "How could I not?" His son stepped back after a few seconds and deadpanned at his father's logic. "You lost an arm, Dadabasa, and that's a big deal." "It's okay. It could have been a lot worse, you know." Naruto fixed his gaze on his natural, now only one arm, grateful that it had not been damaged during the fight. The Hokage realized where he'd gone wrong soon after those words left his mouth. He cursed himself internally for his folly. Panic surged through him as he noticed Boruto averting his gaze downwards, his eyes glistering with barely restrained tears as he registered the implication behind his words. "You should be more careful with your words, moron." Kurama's scolding tone could be heard echoing inside his head. It would send the wrong message if the other one was severed, he chuckled nervously, hoping against hope that this situation could be fixed. When he saw Boruto's puzzled expression, he elaborated. "I would have ended up with 2 bandaged arms. It would have looked bad for Konoha if they had a semi-mummified cripple as their leader, and some might have doubted my ability to lead the village if I only had half of my limbs." Boruto couldn't help but snort as he imagined such a scenario. His father was engrossed in paperwork, with 2 artificial arms. You'd be even less competent. There's no need to be so harsh, the Hokage grumbled before noticing his son was wearing his old worn-out jacket from childhood. It works for you. Do I appear to be a little cooler? Even more than previously. Boruto looked surprised and blinked. So you were paying attention to me previously? Of course, Naruto said louder than he meant to, before a look of shame settled across his features. Boruto. I sincerely apologize for everything that has occurred up to this point. Dad. Because I wanted to protect everyone, I ended up ignoring my family, never tried to understand you, and caused you, your mother and sister pain. The Hokage rubbed his nape shyly. I was also a hypocrite when I tried to chastise you for pulling pranks and causing mischief when I was no better at that age. You also played pranks? Boruto was taken aback by this revelation. It was completely unexpected. Did his strict father, who frequently chastised him for pulling pranks, do the same thing? He just didn't strike him as the type of person who would get into mischief and behave in such a way. Another thing he doesn't know about his father. He promised to change that, and now is the perfect time. I often painted stupid and idiot on Hokage Monument and terrorized numerous shopkeepers and other villagers who wronged me by vandalizing their establishments and houses, Boruto said to his father. Wait, did you really go that far? At least twice a week, Naruto admitted openly. The look of scorn on their faces was almost unbearable, but as long as I got attention, any kind of attention, I was fine with it. Why would you go to such lengths to attract the attention of random villagers? Because. Naruto paused inadvertently. Nobody could blame him for that, though. His childhood was far from idyllic. The constant stares and whispering that followed him since he was a toddler took a huge toll on his psyche, even if he didn't show it until he was in his teen years. Suke treatment caused him to develop a split personality, which he barely managed to overcome and then accept. Naruto always admitted that for a long time, he walked a fine line between his integrity and hatred, which manifested itself over time deep within his subconsciousness. A single wrong move, blunder, or bad day could have pushed him over the edge. The human mind is a delicate thing, particularly at such a young age. Sasuke was a prime example of this. On a spiritual level, they are like 2 sides of the same coin, with Sasuke being the yin to his yang. When Naruto saw how his spiritual brother was back then, he wondered what would happen if their roles were reversed. Naruto was drowning in darkness, his only goal being to destroy everyone who wronged him in his childhood, and he knew that the entire village would suffer as a result. He is certain that Kurama, who was vengeful at the time, would gladly exploit his trauma and emotional weakness, urging him to break the seal. He is certain that his father and mother will intervene. However, whether or not they can steer him away from that path is a different story. As a last resort, his mother, like any other Uzumaki, would beat him senseless.
Even if they used force to stop him and Kurama is sealed once more, Naruto will do it again.
After all, his father and mother's chakra could only be used once. His demise was followed by Kurama's liberation and Konoha's destruction. Even if the fourth war does not occur, Black Zetsu will send Obito to resurrect Madara, who will cast infinite Tsukuyomi and eventually be backstabbed, resurrecting Kaguya, who will rule over this realm indefinitely. Until others arrive, Naruto reasoned, his brow furrowed. He is certain that Momoshiki and Kinshiki, even with the assistance of the third, will be unable to defeat Kaguya, who will amass even more chakra over time. Others, however, are something entirely different, if Momoshiki's words are any indication. Naruto rubbed his scalp, deciding to ignore the impending alien invasion for the time being. He is currently weighing his options.
Naruto rarely, if ever, wanted to talk about his bleak childhood, but Sasuke said it best when they discussed him mentoring Boruto. His son doesn't know him, or, more accurately, the Naruto he used to be. He's heard rumors and stories about elemental nations, but his father has never sat him down and told him stories from the past. Naruto was filled with remorse after having such a thought. Part of the reason he never told Boruto stories from his past was because he didn't want to put any extra pressure on him. Naruto always felt bad when his son was compared to him and thus felt inferior, even though he was more talented and skilled when they were the same age. Boruto learned the wind and lighting styles in academy when he was 10 years old. Even Kakashi recognized his power and praised him for his abilities. Boruto's mentioned eye adds to his already impressive potential. Naruto, at the age of 10, was only able to create a clone that was on the verge of death the moment it poofed into existence. There is no comparison in terms of skill and potential. His son far outperforms him. He taught him the fundamentals because, being slightly naive, he assumed he wouldn't need anything else. They were living in a time of peace in which the bloodshed perpetrated by Shinobi in the past would not be repeated. And it won't because Naruto will make sure of it. But what about otherworldly dangers? Gods, aliens, and multiple dimensions? That's a completely different story. They must be prepared for the worst, even if he does not want his children to experience war. In any case, Naruto had already promised himself that he would repay him, Hinata, and Himawari. And what better way to do so than to share a piece of his past, no matter how bleak it is or how uneasy he is while telling it. Naruto has a sneaking suspicion that being so close to death after dealing with 2 Otsutsuki threats on his own has made him so brave. People frequently say that when they are near death, their entire life flashes before their eyes. That couldn't be further from the truth. Naruto witnessed the most significant events of his life during the final battle between Rasengans. Of course, his comrades and friends were present, but his family was the focal point. He made a decision. His son is a wise and mature shinobi, and it's past time he started treating him as such. During his internal decision-making, it appeared that minutes had passed, but in reality only 10 seconds had passed. Naruto resolved himself once more, letting out a soft sigh. Because they were the only ones who paid attention to me, even if it was negative attention. His only response was a raised brow. Did you learn about Bij and Jinchuriki while at the academy? Boruto looked up when he heard his question and said, "Ah." It was a brief part of our curriculum, but we did learn about them. You have Kaibi within you, no? He corrected himself. Is that Kurama? Naruto indicated with a nod. That's correct, but due to tensions between villages and elemental nations' inability, fear, and reluctance to understand them, there was deep prejudice against them back then. Boruto listened intently, a sinking feeling in his stomach as he slowly began to comprehend the implications of his father's words. The Bij were originally created not only to prevent the Jabis and to extend Kaguya's resurrection, but also to maintain and balance peace. But it didn't work out like that, his son said, fiddling with a stone he found nearby to calm his rising nerves. Kaguya was revived in the 4th Great Ninja War, but we were able to stop her, Naruto explained as he continued his story. Over the centuries, humanity failed to recognize the Bij as sapient individuals, instead viewing them only as monsters, demons, or mindless beasts worthy of fear and disdain. Because of their immense power, humans sought them out to be used as weapons in times of war. The beasts resented this treatment and came to hate humans, at times willingly becoming the monsters they were viewed as. After his explanation, a soft breeze blew across the desolate planet. Boruto felt a heavy lump burrow in his throat as he processed information given to him. If Bij were feared, then their containers should be as well. He was afraid to ask because of his discomfort with the subject and his father's own unwillingness to discuss his past. But he almost lost him, a fact that still haunts him. Dad realized this, which is why he has reached out to him now. Listen, Boruto. Your father was a good-for-nothing, but he pulled himself up with his own strength and became Hokage. You don't need to understand who Naruto is now. You need to know the Naruto who got all the way here. Boruto decided to continue after recalling Sasuke's words. Sans. Did you face the same hostility from the villagers as Kurama's Jinchuriki? Every day, Naruto admitted openly. There was no turning back. With another sigh, he drew back from the edge of a creator and crossed his legs, his son close behind, eagerness and empathy painting his features. On the day of my birth, Kurama was forced to attack the village after being released from my mother, Kushina, who was the previous Jinchuriki. Many people died, including my mother and father, and Kurama was sealed into me. You never met your parents? Hokage's son inquired quietly. His question was accompanied by regret as he recalled rude remarks he made about his grandfather. He was aware that they died when his father was very young, but he was never informed that he had never met them. They only left chakra imprints in the seal that was supposed to keep Kurama at bay and during the war through the use of kinjutsu, he explained. I was about 4 or 5 years old when my Jinchuriki status was revealed to the public. It happened so suddenly. The wariness they adopted whenever I was around them, the contempt and disdain they showed me confused me, and I often wondered what I had done wrong to deserve such treatment. Children weren't aware of it, but their parents still forbade them from playing with me, with great exception on Nara Shikaku. He still remembers it vividly. He sat alone on the swing, watching other kids play with each other and be with their parents, with smiles and joy on their faces. Naruto always envied them and wondered what it was like to come home to a family. It's even more tragic that he's now ignoring what he's gained. How did you manage it? Boruto clenched his fist, pulling the fabric of his pants tighter under his firm grip. Naruto looked at his son, his eyes filled with compassion and regret. How did you overcome their mistreatment of you? Were you not angry with them? Without a doubt, Datbeo, he said, running his fingers through his short blonde hair. To be honest, I drifted for a while and almost turned against everyone, but... His gaze was drawn upwards, to the red sky. I made connections. I could have taken a path of vengeance and hatred toward them, which would have been easier, but that would have made me a hypocrite, no matter how justified it would appear. He recalled a person who had influenced his mind. Back in my genin days, our first mission was to escort a bridge builder to the land of waves. There I met a boy named Haku who had been adorned with great misfortune throughout his life. An orphan like me, after losing his parents, he was found by a person who decided to take him in. When we met, he told me that a person becomes truly strong when they have something important to protect, which greatly impacted me. I chose to. He sounds like a nice guy, Boruto admitted, realizing the reason for Haku's fate and why his father remembered his advice after all these years. With such a bad hand dealt to him from birth, it's no surprise he treasured everyone. He was the most chill. You said the entire village is your family. Was Haku one of your inspirations? Naruto remained silent for a moment, his gaze dropping and his lips twitching upwards. Of course, Datbeo, he stood up and stated firmly. Never break my word. Because that's the ninja way. Boruto couldn't help but smile when he heard such a declaration. It was almost like something out of one of Kagemas's favorite movies. I should have told you all of this sooner. I'm really sorry for breaking my promise and neglecting you by not coming home for Himawari's birthday. No, Boruto said as he stood up to face his father. I expect you to make it up to Himawari, but the truth is, I've always wanted to know. I don't know much about you, Dad. Deep down, I knew all those stories I'd heard about you weren't exaggerated, but my pride wouldn't let me ask you about it. It's difficult, Databasa. I'm constantly compared to you, and even when I achieve something through my own efforts, they say it's expected and that I ride Hokage's coattails. I feel like people only see me as your son and nothing more. I'm not you. That's right. You're not me, Naruto stated firmly, his face solemn. Boruto appeared dejected, taking his remark as an insult. That's not a bad thing, in fact, quite the opposite. A strong hand clasped his shoulder as he locked his gaze with his father's. You can only be you, and you're better than I was in some ways. You are well behaved in front of others and have more potential than I did at your age. Your mother and I would support you regardless of your choices, even if you didn't choose to become a shinobi. It's okay to be inspired by someone, but you must forge your own path in life. Think about what you want to do, Boruto. You were always upfront with your feelings and decided to do things your way. I heard how you managed to prove in academy that you are more than my son. Don't listen to negative things other people say to you. I never did, and it turned out great. I accomplished many things some would say are remarkable. I became Hokage, but most importantly, I managed to rise above it and have you, Boruto. Hearing such words, he felt a range of emotions, from happiness to relief. His vision became slightly blurred. Really? He asked quietly, wiping away the few tears that had escaped. Really, my family is the best thing that has ever happened to me, and for that I will always be grateful, and I promise to show it more from now on. Boruto smiled, but after everything that had happened, he tried to be more sensible and understanding of his father's position. It's fine if you're busy with Hokage work, but if you're not around very often, I want you to be there for important days, and maybe even tell me more about your past. He moved his hand around. I highly doubt you got strong enough to defeat those two just by eating ramen and sitting around all day. Naruto burst out laughing. Of course I did. Ramen is a beautiful creation sent from the heavens that binds us all and provides us with strength when we need it. There's no need to be so dramatic, Databasa, his son remarked as he laughed at his father's antics. Ramen is fine. Every now and then. Diversity is a spice of life, as CHCH would say, particularly when it comes to food. His father is unaware of this and regards it as a divinity. Boruto is certain there is a story behind it, and he intends to question him about it. But are you sure? Boruto returned his gaze to his father. It's a really long story. Naruto warned jokingly. He extended his hand, his fist tightened, and a sense of conviction in his eyes that hadn't been present the last time Boruto tried to persuade him. Is it a man-to-man promise? They exchanged fist bumps. Naruto prepared himself, as did Boruto, and in an instant they were back in front of the four Kages and Sasuke. That was quick, Kuratsuchi said, frowning slightly. She appeared to be upset about the situation. However, you must be the expert. Naruto blushed and rubbed his chin. Calm down, Tsuchikage Dono, Mizukage said, smiling. You can't really blame Hokage Dono for fighting against them in order to protect the rest of us. Please let me mope in peace, she huffed at Chojiro's words, eliciting a chuckle from the young Kage. I missed the first major fight in 15 years. I'm sorry, Naruto mumbled, rubbing his chin. Gaara advised, one should not seek war, especially during a period of peace. Yeah. I know, Kuratsuchi defended with a wave of her hand. Naruto took note of her combative demeanor. In any case, it appears that or rather your, work here is complete, but could you please tell us what exactly happened here? He didn't like it at all. Raikage decided to say something about the rising tension. I know this isn't the best location, but a quick summary should suffice, Darui added. I'm sure you're exhausted after this ordeal, but you have to consider how it appears to the rest of us. Boruto frowned but kept his mouth shut. He doesn't want to get involved and add fuel to the fire. Naruto and Sasuke exchanged glances, catching a skeptical look in his eye. He was aware of Kuretsuchi's demanding demeanor, but he couldn't help but admit that it was partially justified. According to the information Sasuke gathered, Kaguya was terrified of these two, and he defeated them both after taking a tailed beast bomb to the face. Naruto is well known throughout the world for his contributions during the war and 2 years later against Toneri. He had to admit that, despite his pacifist nature and desire to help the world through unity, some countries are terrified of his power, with some of the smaller ones even labeling him a tyrant. It's ironically sad, because Naruto spent so much time and effort helping smaller countries because of Nagato. He never intended for them to be so upset, but it still happened. The fiasco with Scientific Ninja Tool was exposed before he had a chance to properly showcase it to others, and Momoshiki's attack has only tarnished his reputation in the eyes of other villages. Naruto knows he can always trust Gaara and Darui because he has good relationships with A and B. Kuretsuchi, on the other hand, displayed a competitive side to her similar to her grandfather, and he couldn't help but notice that Chojuro, to a lesser extent, seemed unsettled by all of this. Rightfully so, but it still hurts to be the source of others' fear. This reminds Naruto of his childhood, but despite this, he can't help but put his trust in people. Your inventions and naive misplaced trust in people will prove to be your undoing in the end. Momoshiki's foreboding warning rang in his head. He despised the way it made sense. I can't blame any of you, Naruto said after clearing his throat. So, what exactly do you want to know? How did you exactly? Kuretsuchi seemed to hesitate before asking her question. They tied me to a tree and tried to extract Kurama from me, but it was difficult, Naruto explained. Eventually, I broke free and fired a Rasen Shuriken, but it was absorbed by the bigger one, Kinshiki, using his chakra weapons. Both of them could absorb jutsu and Momoshiki could unleash it with twice its original power, but had a harder time doing so with shadow clones, which is why I used the classic divide and conquer strategy. Shadow clones are quick and nimble, so they couldn't risk exposing themselves to a potentially fatal attack by absorbing them, Gaara reasoned. Exactly, Naruto said, snapping his finger and pointing to his friend. Even if they used Rinnegan, I eventually overpowered them through trickery and unpredictability. Kinshiki was the tougher of the two, but neither he nor Momoshiki could compete with Kaguya, Madara, or even Obito in their 10 Tails form. The cryptanalysis team deciphered part of Kaguya's scroll, Sasuke said. It appears she wrote it before consuming the god fruit. In that case, it made sense why she was afraid of them, Chojuro explained. It is an assumption, but Kaguya must have been weaker than them before she ate the fruit if she went to such lengths to stop them. Then something morbid happened. This drew the attention of everyone in the room. Momoshiki transformed Kinshiki into a fruit and devoured him. Boruto couldn't help but exclaim, "What?" They were both wounded, and Kinshiki willingly gave up his life for him, going through some sort of transformation. His chakra grew exponentially, and he explained that this is the law of the Otsutsuki clan. Kuretsuchi looked around at her fellow Kages. So she was going to be food for those guys? A shiver ran down her spine. She can't believe they're supposed to be dealing with cannibalistic aliens. Sasuke speculated our fruit was supposed to be delivered to them in the first place. Their clan most likely operates in a hierarchical system. Based on the information gathered, it is a worthy conclusion, Gaara said, looking at Naruto. I appreciate your efforts. I know it wasn't easy. That wasn't it, Naruto said with a smile. I'm just relieved it's all over. At least it wasn't dull, Darui said, and they couldn't help but laugh at the pun. Space-time ninjutsu is extremely painful. teleporting from one location to another confuses everyone who uses it for transportation. Unlike Shunshin, which is a fast movement in the same dimension, this jutsu causes your perception to be thrown off as you travel between worlds. Sasuke became accustomed to it because he employs the technique frequently, but others were not so fortunate. Although the side effects are only temporary, they can be unpleasant. The destroyed planet was abandoned in favor of his home. As he felt his feet land on the solid tiles of Hokage Mansion, soft sunlight illuminated his features. He looked up and saw various expressions on the faces of his friends and family, ranging from confused to relieved to happy. A dark blur slammed into him and wrapped her hands around his waist before he could say anything. "Papa, your arm." Her blue eyes sparkled with barely held tears. "It's fine, it was a forgery." "I missed you, Hima," he said softly, kneeling down and embracing her with his lone arm. "I apologize for missing your birthday." She stepped back and shook her head, causing her dark hair to swish softly in the breeze. "I'm just glad you got home safely. I understand how important your job is." "It's fine." "No, it's not," he said, planting a soft kiss on her brow. "I should have been with you all, especially on important days, and I promise you now that I will be home more frequently." "Really?" Himawari asked, her hopeful tone making him feel even worse for neglecting her. "Of course, after things settle down, we'll spend an entire day as a family celebrating your and Boruto's birthdays," he smiled. "It'll be a lot of fun, Datbeo." "Thank you, Papa," she exclaimed happily. "Boruto." Hinata ran up to her son, tears streaming down her cheeks, and hugged him tightly. "Are you all right? Are you hurt anywhere?" "Mom, relax, I'm fine," he said as he returned her hug. "We didn't even get to fight enemies because Dad took care of everything before we arrived." "He did?" She took a step back and looked at her firstborn, who was beaming with pride. "It caught everyone off guard," he said, looking in their direction, seeing his father and sister interact. "Dad is truly amazing, isn't he?" "He was always," she remembered with a smile. "More than his strength, your father's optimism, determination, and love for his friends compelled everyone to follow him and stand by his side." Boruto's brow furrowed in thought as he registered his mother's words. "It almost sounds like she said it." "It's almost like you," Hinata said again. Boruto must admit that it was terrifying. Not to be compared to his father, he had time to reflect on his father and his own actions the previous day, but the way she appeared to read his mind. "It's strange." Boruto dismissed it as a coincidence after a few moments. However, as Mitsuki observed from his and Shikadai's behavior, mothers are scary. "So everything is up in the air." "I suppose we're similar." "But not the same," his mother pointed out. "You may have inherited his heart and boisterous attitude, but your grandfather said you were more like Neji Nisan and Yondaime-sama in terms of prodigious talent and insightfulness." Boruto's smile became slightly strained as he said, "He mentioned something like that." "Dad had a difficult childhood." After his statement, only the faint voices of people chattering on the balcony could be heard. "Oh," Hinata said, her lips drawn into a thin line. "I'm sure he told you." She led her son away from the balcony railings, which overlooked the entire village, after he nodded. The sun shone even brighter than before, clearing most of the dark clouds. Boruto saw such a view as symbolic, given that the threat had passed and life could resume normally. He is hesitant about his past. Even to me, he doesn't really want to talk about it, and you can deduce why from what he told you. She began. Boruto realized it now. It's no surprise that he's unwilling to discuss his past when his present is infinitely better and brighter. He still believes he has a right to know about it, and he is grateful that his father told him, no matter how difficult it was for him.
Boruto now has a better understanding of him. Your father had a tragic childhood, being shunned for things he couldn't control and despised by the majority of the village, but he rose above it and was always straightforward in his beliefs and dreams. He was relatable to me, because as an heiress, I was under extreme pressure from my clan, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't live up to their expectations. That's terrible, he said. Was that when Grandpa was more strict? I was shy and meek and couldn't do anything right, but looking at Naruto's optimistic attitude, I eventually became inspired by him and tried harder. Did he have that effect on many people even back then? She brushed her hair behind her ear. Of course it is. It is one of the reasons I fell in love with him. Mom? He blinked in surprise and smiled slyly. You've been in love with your father since you were a child? She stammered, embarrassed as ever. That is something she should not have said. Have you been dating since then? Well, he had a crush on Sarada's mother, and then he had a first and second kiss with Sarada's father, and then there was an incident with some crazy woman who wanted to suck all his chakra out through a kiss, and then he almost married the kunoichi of Nadeshiko village, Hinata said inwardly, a sweat drop on his brow. Naruto did, albeit unknowingly, charm a lot of women in his youth. Her face darkened as she remembered another one who had the audacity to ask her fiancé copyright to impregnate her because of some stupid promise he made 4 years prior that he had no idea what it entailed. Shion. That stupid girl. Boruto fidgeted nervously, and Hinata realized she had said that last part out loud. Is that a no? Hinata only smiled as she and her son approached her husband. I dealt with it. Oh, Boruto said before moving on to greet his sister. Thank goodness you're okay, she said, resting her head on his chest, tears welling up again. Are you injured? That's supposed to be my line, she said as Naruto wiped her tears away. You fought them, and now you can barely stand. Well, Kurama said I was rusty. To put it mildly. A deep voice from within echoed. For the time being, Naruto chose to ignore that remark. Besides, I've had worse, he explained. That's not very reassuring, she said as she examined him with a smile on her beautiful features. In any case, we need to have you checked out. Hinata, I have to tay. Later, she said, interrupting. You're hurt, and this isn't the time or place for it. Naruto reluctantly agreed. Okay. At least it's not your original arm. Sakura tried to find a silver lining in the situation. On the whole, it could have been worse. I guess, Naruto said simply as he was stripped naked on the bed, his dirty and damaged orange jacket discarded as Sakura removed the last of his artificial arm. They weren't the only people in the room. Kakashi sat across from him, casually reading his favorite book with his legs crossed. With Shikamaru by his side, Sasuke stood by the window, looking out over the village. Hinata assisted Sakura briefly before returning the children home to rest. This day had been emotionally draining for all of them, and he and his wife didn't want to add to their stress. They objected at first, but eventually agreed after he assured them that he would be home soon. We won't have that here, Sakura admonished Shikamaru, who pulled another cigarette from his box. No smoking permitted. Go outside or through the window. Shikamaru opened a window and went outside through it with a huff and quiet mutterings of troublesome. This room was connected to a small balcony, so Shikamaru leaned against a window to be a part of a discussion that would take place soon. He searched his pants for a lighter and cursed when he couldn't find any, berating himself internally for losing it in all of this chaos. This is a terrible day. A small orange light caught his eye, and he turned his head to see the tip of Sasuke's finger burning in the fire chakra. Shikamaru expressed his gratitude by inclining his head through a window and inhaling deeply,
savoring the burning sensation in his chest. "All done," she said as she placed Hashirama's arm in a disposable container. Shikamaru looked over his shoulder, listening intently while appearing to be a nonchalant smoker, as Kakashi's book closed and Sasuke's eye focused. "It's time to get to work. Can you please stay here, Sakura?" Naruto asked, eliciting a puzzled look from Pink Kunoichi. "We need your opinion on this." "Fine," she said. Naruto examined every person in the room, or, in Shikamaru's case, outside of it. He took a deep breath and began telling the story of how he battled Otsutsuki, how their clan operated by sacrificing themselves for power, and how he eventually defeated them. "So there are others, huh?" muttered Kakashi, concern visible in his eyes. "Without a doubt. I don't think he'd be dishonest just for the sake of it, especially on his deathbed," Naruto replied. "If what he said was true, and there are others out there, they will learn about Momoshiki and Kinshiki's deaths," Sasuke stated solemnly, his expression mirrored by others. "Not to mention Urashiki, who is still out there. So there won't be much time if he informs them," Kakashi concluded his thought. "Unless they decide to humor us like they have for the past 1,000 years, time is of the essence," he said as he leaned back in his chair and stroked his chin. "However, I believe there is more to it." "Are you saying, Kakashi-sensei, that they didn't come sooner on purpose?" Sakura inquired. "It's more than likely," he told his former student. Everyone was terrified by this theory. That would imply that they kept an eye on them but decided not to act on it for whatever reason. Shikamaru decided to speak up. Either that, or they were preoccupied with other planets. But it is unlikely because, if they have spent all these years looking for Chakra, a planet with billions of people who have Chakra would have attracted them and become their top priority. Sasuke nodded in agreement with his reasoning. Chakra of all beige are incredibly potent, and Naruto did mention that Momoshiki, even after eating kinshiki, still seemed overall weaker than Kaguya. Kinshiki seemed like an experienced warrior who only gained said experience through battle, so we can conclude that they have been harvesting planets for quite some time now. Naruto looked down at his hand after Sasuke's remark, a 4-point black diamond-shaped mark reflecting his narrowed blue eyes. He lifted his hand without saying anything, displaying it for all to see. Sakura's hand unconsciously moved to her brow, tracing a similar shape mark. "One more thing. Just before Momoshiki died, we found ourselves in some sort of astral plane." Astral plane? Kakashi recalled his wartime encounter with Obito. Like being in limbo? Something like that, Naruto confirmed, lowering his hand and donning the white shirt Sakura had given him. "Remember this. Those who defeat gods cannot remain ordinary individuals," my final Rasengan said, before shooting him up in the sky and killing him. This diamond mark then appeared on my palm. After his explanation, there was silence, with each Konoha resident pondering the implications of Otsutsuki's actions, which soon came to a halt. Power transfer, eh? Shikamaru, Sakura, and Kakashi focused their attention on Sasuke, who twitched his jaw unconsciously. It was confirmed by Kurama. He detected a third presence in my body. Kakashi sighed. It seems that problems must always follow, no matter what era. What were once tensions between hidden villages are now fights with gods and the occasional drug lord. Based on the information gathered, a theory formed quickly in his mind. An alien body snatcher gave his power to Naruto with obvious malicious intent. Based on his recap of events that occurred in a different dimension, this Momoshiki decided to bestow mark on him because he isn't ready for others. Rokudame had no doubts that it was only half-truth. There had to be more to it than that, and he was willing to bet his restored left eye on it. From the looks he saw others have, they came to the same conclusion. Shikamaru exhaled deeply and threw the filter on the ground, stomping on it with far more force than was necessary. It's not fair. Such bad luck has always followed Naruto, and now, after everything he's been through, the cycle had to repeat itself. Sakura scoffed, agitated by this development. Naruto had to bear the burden of being Kurama's Jinchuriki for good 17 years of his life. He lost himself countless times in that power and almost lost his life because of it. Now he runs the risk of the same damn thing happening because of Momoshiki. Sakura doesn't want her friend to get hurt and go through that horrible sensation of essentially being trapped inside your own body. Everyone here agrees that she does not want to see him suffer. Sakura. She turned her head to the left, hearing her husband's voice calling her, who appeared sharp and determined, even more so than usual.
Is it possible that Naruto's mark and your Byakugan seal have some sort of connection?
Shikamaru took a long inhale from his second cigarette, courtesy of Sasuke's fire jutsu. It is a common shape, but we really can't rule anything out at this point in time. That's why I asked you to stay, Sakura-chan, Naruto admitted. I know it's a long shot, but anything could help. Sakura followed her lips, searching her memories for something relevant that could connect both of their marks. Tsunade Shisho did say that Byakugan has a poor understanding of history. She drew the attention of others. Her eyes widened at a thought that occurred to her. It is one of the few things that make sense in this jumbled mess that has become their lives in the last day and a half. She continued, gathering her bearings. She said it was an old jutsu from the time of Sage of Six Paths. How is that possible? The Hokage inquired about a question on their minds. I thought Ba-chan created Byakugan seal. Sakura shook her head, causing her pink hair to sway. I understand why you might think that, but Shisho got the idea from her grandmother, Uzumaki Mito, who had a similar seal. Aside from that, she obtained some old scrolls and used them to create the Byakugan that we know today. Such rich history. Shikamaru muttered as he stroked his goatee, the implications are dreadful. Naruto stood up and went to a nearby water machine, chugging a glass of cold liquid in one go and washing away the dryness in his throat. Does this imply that there was another one with the Otsutsuki seal? He rubbed his temples, feeling an incoming headache. This was too much for anyone to bear, so his sensei decided to step in. Ma, Kakashi said lazily, stretching himself after a long period of sitting in the chair. For the time being, the crisis has been averted. It's been a long day, and I think I can speak for everyone when I say that we all deserve some well-deserved rest. Shikamaru threw what had to be the fifth filter by now, and Naruto made a mental note to speak with him about his smoking habits. I'll take care of the remaining paperwork. Go spend some time with your family. Thanks. I owe you something. You owe me a lot. Sakura laughed, and Sasuke smirked as his advisor Shunshine walked away from the balcony, followed by Kakashi. I will return to Sarada, said the sole female member of former Team 7. I understand you want to talk alone for a while, but don't go too long. Naruto, you particularly require adequate rest. She shut the door behind them. She knows everything about us, Datbeo. She does that. Two brothers, friends, rivals stood alone in the room, and Blonde slid into a nearby bed, leaning on his knees, while Sasuke rested his hand on his shoulder. Did Kurama say anything else? He is aware of his chakra, but he does not manifest. He's still on the lookout. It's all too much to process. The Zetsu incident was the most recent issue we had to deal with, and now this. It's draining. When did you lose your toughness? Since I have to sit by the desk 20 hours a day, Naruto sighed. It's good helping the village, but sometimes I just want to relax and be with my wife and kids. You have that opportunity now. I guess, he said, looking at him. So, how about you? Urashiki is still out there, and with Seal Momoshiki left on you, there is one other person besides Godem who can have some information about it.
Sasuke said, turning his gaze to the window. That's great and all, but it's okay to take it easy every now and then, Sasuke said, causing a twitch in his eye. I know I'm not the best example, but I've learned my lesson. I could have done it without fighting aliens and having my child jump on my stomach. Sasuke snorted before recalling something. Speaking of which, I heard Mizuki endorsed Boruto. He stated that his punishment would be less severe because of his efforts in preventing a coup in Kiri and his unusual approach in exams. He will still be suspended for 2 months, after which he will serve probation before being reinstated as Genin. It wasn't right for me or anyone else to demote him from Shinobi rank because he cheated and used trickery, which is a prime example of what Shinobi is. I'm surprised that no one else noticed. Datbeo, our security needs to be improved. What makes you think I was aware? Because you were too astute to overlook something like that. In any case, you had your reasons for not outing him, and in the end, it was for the best. Even if the times change, the soul of a shinobi never changes, Sasuke said. More than trickery and cheating, your son has the potential to be a powerful shinobi, possibly even surpassing us. Something that other Kages noticed. Without a doubt, the Hokage agreed quickly, and thank you again for looking after him. It was the least I could do after you helped me with Sarada. Besides, when Boruto tried to get your approval, I saw a little of myself in him. I couldn't ignore it any longer. Naruto hummed, otherwise remaining silent. Sasuke's childhood struggles with wanting to be acknowledged and respected by Fugaku were something he kept private, with only he and Sakura aware of it. They both looked out the window, seeing the approaching twilight. Sakura-chan said my arm would be ready in days, Naruto casually mentioned. Medical science has advanced rapidly in the last 15 years, and what used to take weeks or even months can now be completed in days. Naruto. It would be beneficial. He went on. It's been 15 years. You'll have more chakra for dimensional travel and won't have to limit yourself to one arm. Seeing that he is still unsure, Naruto pressed on. You won't be out of chakra all the time, he smirked. Don't give me that look. It's true. Against such opponents, we need to use everything we have. You already redeemed yourself, Sasuke. You are the one who informed us of other Otsutsuki out there and are the world's most valuable asset. Without you, I would be trapped in another dimension with no way out. Konoha's shadow considered the request. He knew Naruto was more determined than ever to protect the world from Otsutsuki threats, and if Momoshiki's words are true, they'll need everything they've got. I'll think about it. That was a start for Naruto. He paused for a few beats before speaking again. I won this match. Sasuke raised an eyebrow. Since they were in Genin squad together, it had been their little game to compete at everything. In that way, they are similar to Kakashi and Guy. Eating, drinking, kunai practice, and even silly things like who can hold their breath the longest. They were currently tied. I wasn't even in the race. Duh. Naruto exclaimed, a wide grin on his face. Because I triumphed, Datbeo. Konoha's shadow sighed cheerfully, a smile visible from the corner of Naruto's eye. To this day, your logic baffles me. That made them both laugh. I'm back. Naruto entered his house and removed his shoes, placing them in the corner of the room. He heard noises coming from the kitchen and went in to find his wife hard at work. Hey Hinata, he said, kissing her on the cheek. Where have the kids gone? When we got home, I noticed how tired they were, so I put them to bed, she explained, turning off the stove. Dinner will be ready soon, so I'll wake them up. Hinata examined each meal she was preparing with her finger on her lower lip. It's amazing how a simple motion can still make someone look so lovely. Cream stew is done, dumplings are ready, Kakuni will be there soon. she said regretfully, jolting him out of his reverie. I'm sorry, I didn't have ramen ingredients. He frantically waved his hand. Please don't apologize. I enjoy everything you cook. Naruto shifted in his seat awkwardly. However, I haven't been here in a while to try it, Datbeo. No, you weren't, Hinata said as she wiped her hands and sat in the chair across from her husband. This discussion was long overdue. I need to make a lot of amends, Hinata. I apologize? Naruto bowed his head and looked down. Recently, I've been a terrible husband and father. She shook her head almost immediately after he said those words. Hinata took his hand in her own and looked at him with steel-hard strictness, her white eyes reflecting his blue ones. You had valid and understandable reasons, but that doesn't make you a bad father or husband. If anything, you didn't have your priorities straightened out, and things turned out in a bad way. The reappearance of White Zetsu put everyone in a state of panic, and as a Hokage, you had to act on your duty. Former Hyuga heiress frowned on her lovely features. However, I'm not going to lie and tell you that what you did on Himawari and Boruto's birthday was okay, it wasn't. You should have spared an hour or two to be there with us. It was hurtful, but it was also true. Naruto admitted that he was going to get it. I've known you since childhood, and we've been married for 13 years, and whether it's training or life in general, if you make a mistake, you do your best to correct it, she said, tilting her head. This time isn't any different, is it? Naruto beams and passionately declares. Of course not, Ibeo. I promise to make it up to all of you. We will have a special day to celebrate Boruto and Himawari's birthdays. She laughed at his antics. Even though he has matured over the years, he remains the same Naruto of old. I'm confident we will. They heard footsteps and turned around just in time to see Boruto and Himawari enter the room. When his daughter saw him, she ran at him. Papa! They exclaimed. Did everything turn out okay? Boruto inquired as he sipped his water. Dinner is just finished, Hinata said as she began setting the table. Himawari was close behind him. Please allow me to assist. There's no need to push yourself, Boruto teased. An old man like yourself needs all the rest he can get. I'm still in my 20s, Datbeo. Rusty. Shut up, Kurama. Naruto screamed inwardly. Shin Uchiha. Those two words effectively ended any argument he could have. Kurama and Sakura-chan will never let him and Sasuke forget it. Enjoy this, he said more softly. You earned it. Thank you, Kurama, Naruto said with a smile. Soon, the table was set with plates, utensils, and meals in their proper places. Dinner was served, and it was truly a sight to behold after such a long day. Thank you for the meal. They exclaimed as they began to eat. This was something Naruto had desired since he was a child, perhaps even more than the Hokage position. A place to call home and be a part of. A supportive family who will always be there for him. Naruto resolved that he would always be there for them. He will no longer be distant from them. He is unconcerned about Otsutsuki or those who bear their mark. If they want to jeopardize the hard-won peace that many sacrifice themselves to achieve, Naruto will stop them. The future is in the hands of next generation, but he and his comrades will keep working to make it as bright as possible.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.